Without further ado, of course you came here not to listen to me, but to the presenters from PolyU. So we go over live to Hong Kong, and I'll unmute your line. Good evening, I should say, gentlemen. Thank you for joining.
Good evening.
So I'd like to briefly introduce the two speakers, after which they can further introduce themselves and the program. As we have with us, first of all, on our left, Benny Leong, which is the assistant professor and a specialism leader in international design and business management. Good evening.
Good evening.
And to your left, and for us on the right, is Dr. the research assistant professor and also Ignite Innovation program leader. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for both for joining. We're glad to have you with us. And I will have here your presentation ready so you can introduce this to this great program. Thank you.
Okay. I think I would like to, first of all, welcome everybody. I would like to give you a very brief introduction about myself. Of course, I'm now leading the ID&BM, and so-called International Design and Business Management. But on the other hand, I'm also have a background of training, mainly design, particular industrial design. I've been in the industry for quite some years, and then I returned to the academic and starting my research, now leading a lab called Asian Lifestyle Design Lab, helping companies regionally but also globally. So other than teaching and administrative and research work, we actually take up consultancy work with companies like Suzuki, Canon, HP, Huawei, and then some Korean companies like Hansam and Kuko. So I think we'll be able to talk about it more about the program later on. But before that, I would like to invite Jörn to introduce himself to you first.
Well, thank you very much, Benny. Thank you for inviting me to come along on this webinar. I'm excited to be speaking for once to a larger audience via camera. Although we can't see you, we understand you're coming from all parts of the world, so thank you very much for making the time to join us. We're obviously here in Hong Kong, as Luke introduced us, and we are very excited to be promoting and presenting this program to you. Very briefly, my background is in business, so that probably will be of interest to those of you who are not classically trained in design but have an interest in design. I have been a global citizen for most of my adult life. In other words, I've lived in different countries and also been therefore exposed to different industries and different cultures. And I think really the attraction of this program obviously is about the internationalism of the design side that we're here talking about to you today. I've also been exposed to business verticals like automotive, hospitality, tourism, as well as innovation in its broadest sense. So in that sense, it's a really great opportunity to see design as we present it to you today.
Thanks, Jörn. I think tonight we are not going to throw you some boring stuff first, because if you sort of wanting to know exactly the detail about our program, I think that we have been we have sent you guys the digital brochure through a webinar. So what we are going to do tonight, we'll try to make use of one PowerPoint to try to address or clarify why design-led innovation, or so-called the design thinking, movement, become so important. So we are trying to use this PowerPoint to address from, telling a bit more about our understanding about the background related to Asia, related to, the industry, and how that will come down to the influence, of the economy and then business. And then the relevancy with design thinking and design innovation, and then we will conclude with some sort of possibility or observation about how it affects the career of, let's say, our people and from different disciplines like business, engineering, or design. Now, you can see from the first line, this is actually the most interesting thing that we think it's really much related to the location, whereby Hong Kong, as Luke just mentioned about Shanghai, but in fact, within 3 hours, about 3 hours flight, we will reach Shanghai. And about 5 hours time by flight, we can reach 50% of the population, in the world. I think you can imagine that's a very amazing location that we are in now. And of course, it's nothing new that we know that the most, populated, country, developing country, out of 12 of them, 6 of them are actually, 7 of them are actually in Asia: China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, Vietnam. And also that we are talking about 50% of the world GDP now by 2050 will be generated by all so-called the Asian developing country. And so I think this is a very important sign that that economical power, and not talking only about the population, is very much the importance why we need to have a concern or pay attention to Asia. And one last thing is, we are talking about potential 3 billion new middle income, middle class people in Asia. So this is a very potential market for business and for industry, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right what Benny mentions in terms of the location, the front row seat to a rather significant part of the world now called the Asian century that we're in, for no other reason but because of population, because of speed of development, but also I think for a lot of catching up when we compare to Western world. So as such, we have really now a rising middle class, which obviously is the engine behind growth in economic sense in many ways. And with that comes a great deal of aspiration. And I think also a lot of lessons learned that it's not just about the accumulation of things necessarily. So we have a really interesting trend that is sort of in line with a global consumer movement, I think, that sort of goes more towards experiential things. But more importantly also, we have very soon one of the largest population of millennials. In fact, I think over 60% nearly by 2030 of millennials will be in this part of the world. So there's also the implication that obviously we will have a lot of innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship come along with that. Fair to say on the topic of Asian century, with that comes its fair share of challenges. Hong Kong, as you see from the image on your screen, is a highly populated, densely populated location. And with that, we have our laboratory literally right on our doorstep when it comes to social issues and logistics and mobility challenges and what have you. So in that sense, this is truly to be seen here, to be understood in terms of its importance, the Asian century.
So I think there's, well, related to the Asian century, as Jörn just mentioned about, some of the key points is there's of course some mega trend, that would be very relevant. And I think one of it touched on to the infrastructure bit, for example, the urbanization. If you know that recently mainland China, Chinese government had launched, so-called the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB. I think this is actually the aim of this bank is trying to lobby or sort of gather revenue and resource for investing in Asian Pacific region about infrastructures, and particularly about the transportation of mobility. And we see that this is actually a very interesting moment because we are not talking about calls, sort of city, but also, within city, that all the, let's say, the delving, the facility and all, how it would be influenced. And for sure, that is also related to the kind of ID&BM key learning about solving and, sorting out and looking into this sort of opportunity. If you also look at the other issue like aging, I think this is also another important aspect. We now here in the School of Design, there are three main streams of research. Design economies is one, design making is two, and then the third one is design social. Design social in Hong Kong, one of the key aspects of research and also in terms of design related activity is really about aging in Asia. I think you guys know about Hong Kong, the aging population will rise. In 2040, over 30% of the population in Hong Kong will be more than 60 years old. And that happened to China in 2050. So 2050, China will have more than 30% of the population will be, again, more than 60 years old. So the experience here in Hong Kong will be very much helpful for us to sort of relate it to mainland China. But if you look at India, and in fact, India also very close to China, has a little bit issue, not as much as urgent as in China, but we are talking about in, let's say, 2060, they have around 20%, of the population moving up to over 60. So they are now also considering about the aging issue. But all in all, I mean, this interesting aspect pairing up with digitization, and so this will be a very much kind of a big challenge talking to the community in terms of business, in terms of technology, and particularly related to design. So I think we'll move on to the industry. How does that sort of macro trend, the Asian century, going to affect the industry?
Yeah, I think if I look now at industries, and I think like most mega cities, obviously in this part of the world, are represented by core pillars of economic representation: banking, finance, retail, transportation, tourism. We also have trading here as a very established industry vertical, as well as logistics. Hong Kong has always been well known for its global logistic competencies. So in effect, Hong Kong as a destination, and obviously us as a creative institution within, has plenty of opportunity to engage with these industry verticals. What's really interesting now to observe, rather than sort of seeing them as standalone verticals, we're seeing a lot of horizontal ways of interconnectivity. Because in the end, as things become a lot more consumer-centric, naturally these ecosystems somewhat start to overlap. And I think that's really the fascinating thing about this program, this International Business Design Management Program, where you really have to begin with a very strong, multifaceted, multidisciplinary cohort of students coming from various industry perspectives. And Hong Kong currently is really in high need of that type of thinking to be able to, I guess a better word say, to connect the dots. Banking in particular is changing drastically. All of us have been through the global financial crisis, which of course had a lot of regulatory changes happening the world over. But it's also now, I think, becoming highly globalized in terms of digitalization. So we're seeing ample opportunities to not only reach out, but also being approached by these industries and help them to somewhat connect the dots. And I think that's a very exciting proposition at the moment to be not only here, but also to be able to cross over into these different industry perspectives.
I think having said that, that really brings to the point of how, let's say, all this, related to the design thinking. Perhaps I would like to share a case, which is become a lesson, for the business school to learn about. I think all of us know about Apple. Apple is a very well-known company, not only about their business strategy, but also in terms of design and technology, good mix. But there is a person called Ron Johnson, and I think he left Apple in 2010 around, and then he joined JCPenney. The interesting aspect of him is actually he was the VP, Vice President of Retail Operation. I think you all know how famous, let's say, the retail strategy of Apple, the beautiful shops that they have made or they have created. But in fact, I think Johnson and Ron Johnson, when he left, Apple, I think he came to a very interesting kind of initiative proposed to JCPenney. And he maybe at that time a bit ahead of the time. He proposed JCPenney to eliminate or remove the physical cashier, cash register, or checkout counter. And he had proposed such a bold move, replacing it with technology. But the result was very much unsatisfied, because after 1.5 years of this, let's say, action, what happened is the sales of the JCPenney plumped and then lost, sort of revenue and then market. So he was fired. So I think this is actually a good lesson because when this case was being discussed, professor from the business school of Harvard was saying that that is something to do with the action of go directly deploying technology without understanding what the market needs. And for example, having a test run, for example, having some sort of consumer or user research. And that is exactly what Ron Johnson hasn't done. So I think this is actually bringing back to, no matter all those interesting effects by the new Asian century, that we need to look into what would be the most interesting or important part for innovation. And for that, I think you all know that this, in the past 20 years or so, design thinking have been gradually come into the mainstream. And you may see that there's a tech company or consumer insight company now acquiring, design. This is one major sign. For example, Factronic, acquired Frog Design, and Google acquired two, one is industrial design company, Mike and Mickey, and then Gecko Design, which is really responsible for web development and graphic design in 2014. And Facebook also acquired Hot Studio, which is experience design firm, 2013, and not let alone McKinsey. McKinsey is not a tech company per se, but they also acquired Lunar Design. Lunar Design is very, I think, well known after IDEO. The company actually is strong at industrial design also, and that happened in 2015. And you can read there's some others like Accenture, RIMS, Capital One. Quite some company in these days are acquiring, design firm. So I just want to assure you now it's the era of design led, which is influencing the business development and business innovation these days. Well, by the way, other than design thinking itself and the innovation aspect, perhaps maybe I would like to invite Jörn to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I think when we talk innovation, obviously we are very much informed by the human need or the, idea of being human-centric in the approach to understand not only needs, wants, but also desires. And I think what we're finding now is, perhaps we touched on a bit earlier on not only the phenomena we have around us here in Asia and the growth that goes along with it, but also those industries which are starting to realize it's less about product, it's more about understanding the aspirations, the desires that come along with it, and yet at the same time innovate somewhat around making things a lot more simpler in their overall proposition. And as I mentioned earlier on, I think now we find that a lot of organizations come to see us wanting to participate in this learning and educational realm in the way we're talking now about this particular program. And that really gives an incredible relevance to not only learning it through the formal side of education, but also to have all the studio activities themed. In recent times, we have had organizations as diverse as financial services and also fashion to work with us and our students, particularly in Benny's class, where we are looking into solving issues that have very little to do with the actual product that they might be standing for, but a lot more to do with connecting these dots to be adding value somewhere along the value chain as opposed to being just very specific about one particular aspect. And I think that to me, to also the learning process that you obviously are interested in, brings high contextual interaction. One organization in particular we have been doing a lot of work with lately is a group called Kering. It's a French house of brands, very well known for its origins in the Gucci group and its fashion range of brands. But you know, their problems are no longer about just selling more products. Their problem is a lot more to do with understanding really the consumer, particularly the Asian consumer, with a very high aspirational ambition at a level that I guess designers are ideally suited to help uncover. And that is really the learning, hands-on, learning in action that we really kind of treasure here a great deal at the school.
Yes, I think one thing that maybe I would say that we can claim unique here in this in Hong Kong, but also in this particular program. When this day design thinking talk a lot about human-centered design, we actually now sort of move on to discuss about what we call people-centric, thinking and emphasis. The reason is actually the people-centric thinking is human-centered, but in a sense of with cultural empathy. That's why I think in our program there's a talk, a sort of discussion about culture, lifestyle culture, cross-cultural issue, and also something about how value connected to culture itself. With reason, of course. If you look for one example. I think other than WhatsApp, I think most of you are using it. In fact, now in the world, there's another competitor called WeChat. Actually, it's really, really popular, initiated by a Chinese company here. And one of the very important sellable design that they actually have created is not text messaging. It's actually voice messaging. So it's a very much to do with the cultural differences of the typing, inputting Chinese character, and also the social behavior in Asia, in China, which accepting people talking loud, in public. So this has become a very popular features of WeChat. And remember, WeChat had really big let's say, population of users. We are talking about 300 million of users now, equal to entire adult population of the United States. So when we're talking about people-centric, we very much emphasis on the understanding of the cultural issue on top of user or human. And of course, there's also expanded towards the idea about the sharing economy, the social economy today. So we're talking about emphasizing on the empathy, empathetic, kind of mode of research. So participatory research, co-research or co-creation. And so I think this is actually one of the important discussion in this program too. Now, Jörn.
Yeah, so I think questions we often get asked when it comes sort of not only to the joining part and being part of this very exciting environment and this sort of front row seat that we described early on, is I think to sort of articulate the value proposition. And I think that's something we're taking quite seriously. While we have students in our care for the duration of the program, we are very excited about the collaborative initiatives that we're setting up with industry, where we really feel that it's less so about just the short-term journey in the formal educational sense, but also I think trying to help define value proposition. Not only we're doing this obviously with our collaborative partners for them, but also for our students in their ongoing pursuit to how they really then reposition themselves in the field, wherever they might have come from, trying to really apply a designerly type approach to solving problems, but really talking at a much greater strength about how the design thinking learning, as well as the design problem-solving propositions are becoming a key part of how you will eventually shape your career. So that's something that Benny and I have had many discussions on, and we really feel very excited and passionate about, that we are truly now in a global environment, but also very empathetic towards how do you actually really shape that value proposition for your own future. There's probably two things we have always come full circle around. One is you have to aspire to become a leader in the future if you really want to take maximum benefit out of this program. And also I think we feel that there's a lot of creativity to it, which we think is equally as important, which, by the way, can be learned. It's not something you're born with. So we really feel creativity, when we talk to all our industry partners, is probably the most sought after skill set at the moment. Leadership and also creativity. And I think that's something that we feel we get a great alumni happening on the back of it. And we're very excited about, of course, engaging with many who might have come from Latin America all the way here to Asia, but now are part of a very strong network and really understand their value proposition.
So I think, let's say the content about, or I would say the sort of trying to clarify, why design and innovation is important this day, that more or less been, covered. I think it would be now, great to pick up some question, from the floor, so that, to see whether we could sort of like answer, those questions, now.
Okay, great. We'll go over then to the main screen. I will take you back to this view because that's easier for everybody to see the panel called Q&A, as indicated in the beginning, but some people joined later. You can write your questions through the panel Q&A that you see on the right. Just click on it, it opens, and you can write your questions. Now we already have some questions received, and I will read them out so that one of the presenters can hopefully answer these. First of all, I have a question. I have no formal training of design ever. Does it matter? And what should I prepare for the application of the program?
Well, seemingly that's quite a hot topic or hot question. In principle, this program, ID&BM, is we are not only looking for design, let's say, student or student with the design background. Again and again, we open up for, let's say, other than design, the student from design discipline background. We would like to have, engineering and business, or even maybe humanities, students from humanities disciplinary background. The reason is actually we would like to enable an actual real multidisciplinary and or maybe what now we even call it interdisciplinary approach in terms of dealing with challenge, from the real world or from, the client, whereby the different part of our intelligence, the brain, left brain, right brain mode, could be integrated in a most effective way through the kind of process that we're going to introduce to the student at the first semester, so that it will help, let's say, the team to glue together and work more effectively and be creative, but also balancing the so-called technological feasibility and the business viability of it. So I think this is not a need, to have a design background. In fact, if you are from engineering or business or humanities, what we really love to have is actually a description that you can, the kind of letter and also a history of listing or sort of telling us what you have been doing and so far, and what is your interest, and particularly your history of your practice, or the kind of history of your study. And the motivation part, we would be really love to know, because we'll see whether you are actually knowing why you are taking up this program, or why you want to apply this program.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that answer. I hope that gave a good indication. And yeah, do give us your feedback as indicated by Mr. Leong. Second question we received in the meantime is, what are the usual modes of study and learning of the program?
Me again? Okay. In fact, the program now is structured in the sense that we have basically 3 modes of learning. It started from first semester, more theoretical driven component or subjects, but supplement with live project. Yeah. So, but the theoretical part is actually the major, part of the learning. And then in the second semester, it will change. It will be a studio project-driven mode, and supplement with some sort of theoretical or related sort of lectures. And then the last semester is what we call the capstone reflective thesis, which is really much about the reflective mode of learning. So students have to be working alone mostly in the first semester with supervisor. But by the way, Jörn next to me is have been also work a lot in helping and coaching the student in this particular semester. So, and also in the first and second semester, it's all of the project or subjects will be group team working mode, so team-based. So that's why we are talking about the multidisciplinary. The student will be mixed up, let's say the design, business and engineering or technical, student will, sort of join together to form teams and work for the given challenge from a client or from the professor.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. And we have received another question. The question that was asked, would there be opportunity to work with local and or global companies during the course of the studies?
Yeah, perhaps I can give reassurance there that we, as I mentioned earlier on, I guess, do a lot of theming of our subjects. In other words, we invite organizations to come in and lend us their theme, not related necessarily to a specific problem, but rather to a topic that they have been given considerable thought to and need a team around from a creative perspective to find possible answers or concepts. That in itself obviously provides contact with those organizations and those leaders who come into our school quite frequently to be presented to by various groups, also from various perspectives. And we always find that this natural coming together obviously leads to relationships, leads to some sense of belonging that in the end often brings these opportunities along. We also think quite unique, I'm not overly technical on that, but I understand that many who require visas to come and visit and study here get the extended option to stay on for a period of time post the actual degree to be able to apply themselves in the local context. And I think that's what's quite unique about Hong Kong, if I'm correct, that we actually have that option. And I think nearly all are taking it up. They stay a year on afterwards to be able to then work for industry or work within these partnership organizations. So it's definitely a very strong possibility. It's also, I think, very eye-opening to be able to get into a very different industry vertical, perhaps. And we really encourage that.
I think on top of what Jörn just mentioned, every year we connect, or design subjects together with a company. And normally in the first semester of this program, we will not have so-called the social responsible kind of project, mainly to do with local, let's say Hong Kong-based or maybe China-based, but mainly Hong Kong-based company or NGO or government body. For example, in the past few years, we have been working with Hong Kong Recycle about the recycle, trash recycle, but particular very valuable, trash recycle business. And then we work with also the Hong Kong efficient unit, the Hong Kong government efficiency unit, dealing with food waste in Hong Kong. And we also work with something about the maintaining the cultural sustainability in Hong Kong. And this year we work with Hong Kong Tramway. Hong Kong Tram, I think you guys know, is also one of the very important, let's say, a landmark, kind of, for Hong Kong. And in terms of global company, we have been working with Coca-Cola, Verbrand from Italy, Somfy, B2B business from France, Hoover from the States, Unilever, and this year we are we're working with 3M. So there are actually variety of let's say project we engage with the actual industry. By the way, we also would start from the semester one with a smaller project, and then the second semester will be a bigger one, so it scale up on the way towards the end of the program.
Great, thank you very much. I hope that gives a clear answer to that question. And by the way, I did receive earlier on somebody chatting to me and wondering if they were the only one. That's definitely not the case. So we have people joining in from different countries in the world, from different continents even. So just to indicate, we have people from Southeast Asia, from Europe, from Latin America. Various countries are all connected live today to Hong Kong, where we have the presenters based at this moment. And for some people that joined in later, in case you missed something, we are recording this. So we'll be sending out the recording to you so you can still review it if you like. Okay, meanwhile, we have another question that came in. Having taken this course, what sort of specific employment roles do people tend to progress to?
Well, I think this is actually not a straightforward answer that I can give, because it very much depending on what disciplinary background let's say the student are having before they come in. The reason is the program here is not trying to convert a person to other discipline. For example, if you have the business background or a marketing background, you like design perhaps, but this program was not aiming to convert you from a marketeer or a business manager then become a designer per se. What I meant designer meant is like the operative one. But we aim to let's say nurture and maybe sort of help to enable you to become the strategic designer. Means that you are working in a much more the sort of higher level in terms of planning ahead and seeing what would be the challenge and how it could be reframed in terms of the problem or challenge into new opportunity, but based on the design thinking and based on research, based on a process that we going to introduce to you. And so we normally will encourage the student to, when they go out, they would use very much the vertical, what we call vertical, the one that you've been trained for a few years in your BA, bachelor degree, and then building it up and exercising your horizontal skill, which is trying to picking up the integrated design thinking skill here and work as a kind of project leader, or maybe you have your own company starting up with using design thinking to help company to be innovative. So that is the situation mostly we recommend that the student are doing. And in the past, because this program now is only the 4th years of establishment, of course we have some sort of information from the past what the students are doing. For example, there are business students graduated and then now become a risk advisory, about for Ernst & Young, a company which is known as, the accounting, the financing, things like that. But it's now working on the risk management kind of things. And then another student with mainly design background, when he joined the program and with some sort of engineering training, now he's in the work with Philips as a business development officer. Of course, it's a little bit changed, from sort of his background, but he is sort of bold enough to step out. Of course, concurrently also he take on another program for reinforcing his study. And then there's an engineer. There was one of our alumni engineer. He came in with this technical background, and now he actually went out to become a product manager of Baidu. Baidu is actually one of the biggest company in terms of the new internet age in China. And I think I can name on the design, with work on promotion, marketing, and some of them are very much stick onto their own discipline, but serving the company in a different level. I mean, they are not anymore just operational designer or manager, or junior manager, but most of them are moving up to the ladder, trying to take lead, to help the company to move on to take up, let's say the challenge. So I would say this is kind of obvious change. So we would advise the student to try to build, based on the strengths, and then develop it in the horizontal sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Leong. Mr. Bühring, you wanted to add something?
I was going to say, it's obviously a very important question for obvious reasons that we mentioned earlier on. And I think just out of my own experience, having worked in industry, in business, but always feeling very creative, hence gravity towards design, but I think the end result is one of wanting to be a leader, which obviously is the leadership aspects to be presented early on, wanting to be within a creative industry environment that can be found even within conservative industries. But I think if we really look at strategy, insight, and innovation within the three descriptives, you probably will find ample opportunity going forward now into a environment that really depends heavily on innovation, leadership, management in many ways. So I think there's a fair bit of scope to be had from there, and obviously shaping that value proposition while you're here.
Well, I think in fact, if we sort of have a kind of search of what sort of position, possible sort of position for design, it's very hard to see there's a position for design thinker. But you may see some sort of post, like they say project manager, innovation manager, strategy manager, R&D, business development manager, and all this is actually also a very obvious saying that there's a chance for those who get into the company and to sort of help out, the company by, not only in the electric way, but trying to create value based on a more design-led, sort of motor.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your answers. I hope that explains a bit more about the question as she's given. So we have received some more questions, but before I go over those, I actually like to open up a brief questionnaire to everybody, because we also like to know from everybody a bit of their feedback. So right at this moment, I open up a brief polling, and it is to get an idea and some feedback from all of you out there that are joined live, to get an idea if the session was useful, and any comments you'd like to make on the session, or also if you want to state any personal points there that you'd rather not ask yet, we can make sure to get those to the university as well. And lastly, if you're planning to apply, so that's also to get an idea of where you are, the current decision process, so to say. If you're already considering it, or if you need any more information, again, in the comment section, you can also point out if you'd like to receive more information, or you have any specific doubts or questions still. We can address those to the university. So thank you for your feedback. That is very useful. And I see most of you already started to fill it out. So don't forget to hit submit at the right bottom, by the way. Otherwise, we won't receive the answers. Whilst most of you are busy filling it out, and I see some of you have finished, there is another question that came in, and there's a question from Jimmy, who's asking, are you planning to continue projects with students and caring in fall 2017? Can you comment on this?
That's an interesting question, and I think one that we obviously are very mindful of is a endeavor for us as well. We may perhaps say and add to it that we try to set up relationships for a longer period. They're not project or semester dependent. They're more a program level over sustained periods. And I think it's fair to say that in design, particularly in the current environment of consumption, there's an ongoing need to continue to evolve in the innovation cycle. And so the short answer, of course, is yes. And what we also find being quite uniquely positioned because of partnering with global organizations to actually bring these very same endeavors that we do here into our partner university network in other markets. And you probably have read up about, we have a substantial network of university partnerships in nearly all parts of the world. So we really see and foresee that eventually the current example in the context of Hong Kong will become a similar example in the context of perhaps your home country as well. So yes, absolutely, we have other partnerships in very similar circumstance that are equally as attractive, albeit in different industry vertical, like finance I mentioned. Yes, that's the value proposition from our perspective as well.
I think one thing I would like to sort of provide, let's say this is really latest information from our side. Yes, we are now working with one B2B and one B2C company. One is from Europe, one is from Japan. They're talking about a newer way of collaboration, meant that we will be continued kinds of relationship, project work, starting from the briefing and from the teaming up, and even from the teaming. We are thinking about not only have the student themselves, grouping together. We would have, let's say, the middle management managers, or some of the managers from the company joining in the projects, whereby they will be helping, but also at the end they are going to be part of the team, and we'll go through a bidding process whereby the senior management from this company are going to select, let's say, so-called winning project. The winning project, there will be possibly internship, but also carry on this, let's say, very potential concept or design idea, or the kind of projects. So that would be a situation that not only internship possibility, maybe in the longer run could be a kind of after the internship could be potential hiring. We also talking about not only 1 year thing. We're going to try to match the company development, sort of momentum. So year on year, that the same company will come in, but with different challenge. But the challenge is based on the real, situation and real sort of progress or plan of the company. So it is a very dynamic and very different way of working. So I hope that we'll close the deal, and then in the coming year, that we will at least have the first, project, based on this sort of model. And so I guess this is the latest information that I can give you. I hope that will be interesting for you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I hope that was also good for Jimmy, who asked the question. All right. We have another question from Cosimo. Cosimo is asking, what's the average cost of life in Hong Kong for students? Can you indicate something about this?
Maybe I think everyone knows in Hong Kong the only headache, if you're talking about the life expense, is accommodation. I think this is actually the most, I would say hardest part. But other than that, if you're talking about transport, food, and all the other things, it's, I would say, pretty okay. Of course, it depends on where you are and then where you come from. From Europe, for sure, you will see, the cost of, food, transport will be even cut. I mean, half or maybe even, 60% or maybe more. But talking about accommodation, this is Stephanie passed me the notes about average. Talking about average, spending, 4,000 to 4,500, Hong Kong dollars. So this is accommodation, per month. But this is actually managed by university. But this so-called 4,500 is talking about renting flat together with two or with other student. So that is a sort of flat sharing. So you share a flat, and then you may have your own room. And so you can see this is pretty expensive. You're talking about renting a room with 4,000 to 4,000 something Hong Kong dollars, per month. I think that is actually the most the difficult part. Talking about food, I think you can have, at the school, you can have something like 30 Hong Kong dollars, around 3 euros, 7 US dollars. You can have a lunch or dinner. Of course, you can also have a very luxury dinner or lunch. Hong Kong have a big, sort of variety for people to choose. I think clothing thing is very cheap. I think that's very easy to find some shops that sell very cheap, good deal, clothes. Transportation, if you are the let's say the student, of the university, I think that you can get a sort of discount, with the transport using the autobus. So that's what I can tell.
Okay, thank you very much. That is very useful, and I hope that also addressed the question for Cosimo. We have a couple of minutes left for some last questions. Dorothy had a specific question. She's indicating, I'm now a fashion designer and finding a further step of my career. Is this a right program for me?
I think it's really much to do with, maybe Jörn will come with his own answer, but my understanding is it's really much on the kind of aspiration that you have. If you think that fashion design, in the end, you will be aiming at being, helping the company to help them to drive, new innovation or, So I think just designing in the product-centric, base kind of design is not enough. So we are talking about, system organizational change, and which means that there's a culture that you need to help them to build up. For example, the culture of not departmentalize, different functions of a company like marketing, business, product management, and technical staff, and then the design. If they do so, it's no way that that sort of uneven stick will not help the company to change and move on to be a more innovative organization. So if you are thinking about wanting to move up and trying to help the company or companies, and I think that would be an interesting program for you to take on. Or if not, if you say I like only designing fashion and dresses, fashion stuff, then maybe that may not be a good program, because this is not about me only designing things.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. One of the last questions, we still got a couple actually, I see now. We have a question also from Jörn, if I said it right. Can you indicate how many students apply to this course, or at least how many students can study this course? Can you comment a bit on this?
I think it's number one, we have some sort of system to scan. We have some system to scan. Firstly, what kind of university or what kind of program that they study before. So it's very hard for us to say exactly, but normally, if you're talking about the initial scanning, there are 200 plus, student applying average, and then we started with taking up, let's say, 28 students, and now we sort of like move up to 30. But then we are thinking about we should sort of control, within the kind of 26, 20 something. But it all depends on the quality of student that they apply, because when the college student, the pool with college student are bigger, then we would like to also take on more, but it really depends on, but there is a sort of ceiling, and 30 is our ceiling, yeah? So I think this is the kind of figures that I can provide to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That is appreciated. And there is a question that came in from Pei. Pei is asking, what's the role of a business student usually in the project team?
We are now working on a kind of process, what we call integrated design thinking. We try to distinguish from normally people call design thinking, because design thinking is a word that may be mainly talking about how we practice the designy ways of doing things. But we would like to make the other disciplines could actually integrate into the whole process more. So not only purely using let's say the designer tools or design discipline tools. So what happened is in the different process of this the so-called integrated design thinking process, the business student will play different roles like all others, group teammate from engineer or from design. For example, in the initial phase, they may sort of play the role of being more or less like a normal daily people, whereby they will consider the kind of challenge from the company and playing as the consumer or user to try to think about what would they need to know from them, and then also they will switch to their own profession in judging what kind of research method they should deploy in order to make it the most effective result within the given time. So be it if the business student will think that using statistical quantitative survey it's to do good for exploring the possibility or understanding the market, be it that would be the kind of contribution the business student could give it. And then of course all down the road the information comes back, the analysis part, and when it's derived to certain design, and there's a consideration of business viability, and so the business student will need to contribute in terms of from using their sort of logic and also their basic learning and skill, and to help the team to form business strategy, and or maybe to develop newer business approach or models. And so all in all, because the final result is not only a design proposal, it has to be a balance of desirability from the point of view of design, feasibility from the point of view of technical engineering, and from viability from the point of view of business. So each of the let's say the group member from different disciplines have to contribute. And having said that, we also have some tools like the process of how to filter ideas. For example, we have a filter called the UTB, User, Technology, and Business Filter. Means that when there's initial concept, there will be first all the member will play as as the final end user, and through doing so, they will scan and they would remove those inappropriate, let's say, proposal which is not welcome or not desirable. And then next phase, they will narrow down the kind of number of proposals, and then they will switch to business or technology kinds of a way of assessing it. So they need to build criteria, and using the criteria to evaluate. And I think that is the what we call the integration. We don't talk about only using design way of dealing with the challenge or dealing with the design project itself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the in-depth answer on this. I appreciate it. We have a couple of more questions. I am aware we are now at 1 hour mark of this webinar. I know, gentlemen, would you still have some time for a couple more questions, or we can take them otherwise offline?
I think I would suggest, because since there are some participants hasn't been online, and of course they can replay the video. We welcome further question, whatever that you can think of, and please through webinar we would accept the question later on, and we will reply through the online channel. Should we do that?
Okay, so we will gather the questions and send them to you?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so with that, we still had a couple of questions mentioned. We will send them through to PolyU Design, and you will get an answer back about this. Perfect. All right, so with that, I'd like to still indicate that we do have the polling still open, so if you haven't answered the questionnaire yet, I would kindly ask you to do so. Thank you very much. And then lastly, I'd like to, wrapping up this session, I would like to thank everybody for joining. We had a good amount of people from different countries all joining today, so thank you very much. And of course, last but not least, the presenters of today, Mr. Benny Leong, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
And as well as Dr. Jörn Bühring, thank you for your time and being with us.
Thank you very much, Luke, for facilitating. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Luke.
All right, have a good evening, everybody, and good evening, morning, or wherever you are. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Greetings. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.